What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the FantasyPros Dynasty Football Podcast presented by Reality Sports Online. My name is Kyle Yates, and I am joined by Trevor Sigma. He can be found on Twitter at Tampa Bay Trey. Trevor, we finally, are we actually recording this podcast? Is this actually happening? Because we tried to do this, since Tuesday?
Yeah.
But I have not had power in my house since Tuesday night, or Wednesday. We've tried to do it Wednesday because I lost power on Tuesday night, man. Oh my word. Are we actually recording this podcast? Is this actually happening?
You and I talked about it before the show, and it's so very true. You just don't realize the little things that go into you having power, like simply turning on the lights in a room to be able to see. Like everybody thinks of the big things, right? Like air conditioning, and obviously you think about the food in your fridge, how long you're not going to have power, whatever. Yep. But it's literally just walking into a room and flipping the light switch and nothing happening. That is the most annoyingly inconvenient thing ever. So I'm very glad that you have power back, not just because we get to record this podcast, but also for your sanity and your family's sanity.
Yes, my sanity. Yeah, the amount of times that my wife and I each walked into a room and turned on the light just out of habit and nothing happened and went, gah! Can't count it. Can't count them. It happened way too many times. Numerous. But anyway, we are super excited for this show, Dynasty Bold Takes, and these are different than these bold predictions for fantasy, for redraft leagues for 2021. We are looking ahead and trying to predict a whole year out what is going to happen. So really excited for this one. We changed, I mentioned on our previous podcast, the last podcast that we did, that we were going to be talking about the tight ends for the 2022 NFL draft and continuing the scouting there. And we wanted to just kind of move on from that because with the tight end group, there's plenty of time that we're going to be able to talk about these guys. None of them are really standing out the way that Kyle Pitts did last year. So there's some good ones in this class, but again, we'll have plenty of time to be able to unpack those as we move throughout the college football season and into the 2022 NFL draft cycle. So we wanted to move on and build up that excitement for dynasty leagues that are about to kick off, man. Preseason football is happening. The New England Patriots and Washington football team last night was a ton of fun to watch. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. It's just a ton of fun to actually have football on the TV. So we are excited to get into this episode. But before we do, I want to remind everyone that we have a giveaway going on courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. That is a Cam Akers signed helmet. So make sure to enter this giveaway. Make sure you head over to Apple Podcasts or CastBox, leave a review for the show, and then head over to fantasypros.com/dynasty contest. Fill out the short form there and attach a screenshot of your review. Additionally, if you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, we are closing in on 100,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel, which is so exciting. We want you to be a part of pushing us over that finish line there to 100,000. If you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, you also get an additional 3 entries into this giveaway. So attach a screenshot that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel into that form over at fantasypros.com/dynasty contest, and you get those additional 3 entries there. Again, that is for a Cam Akers signed helmet courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction. All right, Trevor, so Dynasty Bold Takes, right? And I wanted to, before we kick into ours, we've each got 4 each, and I don't know how long this episode's going to go. It could be 45 minutes, could be an hour, who knows? But before we get into that, I wanted to look back at last year and look at some of the rankings that were there and how much shifted in the fantasy football landscape, because these claims that if you had said these last year, people would have said that you were out of your gourd, that you were out of your mind, that you had no idea what you were talking about. And this just goes to prove how illogical fantasy football can be sometimes. Right. So, man, it's just so crazy to look back and see how much has shifted, how much has changed. So I wanted to walk through a few of these, right? Okay, so if you had said last year, at this time last year, that Miles Sanders will fall outside of the top 15 running backs because he was being ranked at number 10. He was at RB10 in Dynasty rankings last year. Miles Sanders will fall outside the top 15 running backs. That would have been true because he is now being ranked outside the top 15 running backs. That is crazy to look back and say that Miles Sanders at RB10 is now, I think he's down at RB18 now.
Whew, man. Yeah, I mean, everything was still looking up for the Eagles. I mean, they didn't think that it was going to fall off the way that it did, certainly, but Doug Peterson was still there. Carson Wentz was still there. I mean, there was still reason to believe that the Super Bowl magic from not too long ago was still there for the Eagles and that they could certainly bounce back. And holy cow, now you're looking at that offense and you go, okay, sure, Miles Sanders is still there and he's going to be RB1 for him, but what else do they have? Nothing. It's just crazy. It seems like teams are just going to stack the box against him. So, man, yeah, that's quite the fall for Sanders. Not totally his fault either, which kind of sucks.
Right. Yeah, here's the other one that was drastic. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if you had said Clyde Edwards-Helaire will fall outside the top 12 running backs, that would have been correct. He was ranked 6th last year. He is now at 13 in running back dynasty rankings. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, remember, that was a huge hype going into last year, was that he was coming out, of course, the first-round running back, drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, the best offense in the league.
Yep.
He falls all the way outside the top 12 from 6th last year. Additionally, Josh Jacobs will fall outside the top 20 running backs. He was ranked 11th last year. Josh Jacobs is now all the way down at RB21 in dynasty rankings. People do not want Josh Jacobs on their dynasty rosters, which is crazy.
That's a little much for me. Like 21 that's
21
rich
is
for me,
steep,
man.
man. 21 is steep.
I've drafted Josh Jacobs before then. I'm not like letting him get to 21. That's a little crazy.
That's a little crazy. Here's another one that is, you talk about crazy. Antonio Gibson will rise to a top 12 dynasty running back. Guess where he was ranked last year, man?
It wasn't high. I mean, I don't know exactly where he was, but it wasn't high.
Around RB50. Around RB50. So if you had said that he would have gone from RB50 all the way up to a top 12 dynasty running back, you would have been correct. He's now at RB12, one spot above.
We didn't even know what Antonio Gibson was going to be.
We had no idea.
Right?
No idea.
That's why. There was just so much unknown. Also, I do think it's hilarious about Edwards-Helaire because you were, while you were talking, I was looking it up because I couldn't remember the exact stats, but Edwards-Helaire came out the gate with 138 rushing yards and a touchdown. Oh my word!
We looked like we were soaring to RB1 in fantasy football after that first week, and then we never saw it again.
Nope,
never saw it again. All right. Additionally, Zach Ertz will fall from a top 4 tight end. He was still a top 4 tight end in dynasty rankings last year to tight end 22 in dynasty rankings currently.
There's nothing to trust about what's going on in Philadelphia. Absolutely nothing. Crazy. And so obviously like Ertz didn't play well and Ertz is going through his own stuff in Philly. And so it's Zach Ertz's fall from grace is more attributed to Zach Ertz than say like Miles Sanders' fall from grace is. But still, I mean, it's hard to bet on anybody in Philadelphia right now.
Yep, insane. Last two here. Justin Jefferson will rise to a top 5 dynasty wide receiver from wide receiver 32. He was wide receiver 32 around that range in value last year and is now a top 5. I think he's at wide receiver 4 last I checked. And finally here, this was the big kicker. If you would come on a podcast like this and you had said the wide receiver 1 in dynasty rankings will fall to wide receiver 15, you would have been correct, calling Michael Thomas falling all the way from wide receiver 1 now to wide receiver 15 in dynasty rankings.
Nuts.
A drastic fall off and drop off for Michael Thomas last year. Insane.
Crazy.
All right, man. All right, let's continue the crazy train here, and let's go with you for your Dynasty bold takes again. This is trying to forecast here for this upcoming season and what could potentially be on the horizon here. So let's turn it to you for your, I don't know if you want to value these at like your least spicy to spiciest. I don't know if you want to just get the spicy one out of the way. You let me know.
No, I'll go least spicy to spicy because I understand how podcasts work, and we got to keep people listening to the whole podcast because we got great stuff to say. My first bold take, which sort of a bold take, but it's more about proving what is right. And I'm saying that Kyle Pitts is going to be the number 1 overall drafted tight end. And I'm saying this not just for Dynasty, like I'm saying this for regular fantasy too. I think that Kyle Pitts is going to be tight end 1 no matter what league you are in, no matter how long-term it is, or no matter how you are looking at it. PPR, standard scoring, whatever, Kyle Pitts is going to be tight end 1. And the bold part about that take, because it seems like this isn't too bold of a take, right? There are a lot of people who are taking Kyle Pitts maybe as the first tight end in Dynasty leagues. But the bold part about it is I'm telling you, it's going to pay off. I'm telling you that Kyle Pitts is going to be as advertised. There's not going to be this, like maybe he was a little bit overhyped. Like we're not seeing that. Dude, I just went over his tape again earlier this week, actually, while I was doing summer scouting on Derek Stingley, the cornerback from LSU. And the dude's an alien. Now, we've said it so many times, but like it doesn't, he is so perfectly molded for where the NFL is going in every single way when it comes to passing attacks and mismatch and using tight ends as best you can. There's not going to be any kind of drop off with him. My bold take is that you are going to have absolutely no regrets no matter where you drafted Kyle Pitts, whether it's a dynasty league, whether it's a regular league. He is going to be the number one tight end in all of fantasy football next year and for probably a long time moving forward.
All right, so what would it have to be? What would he have to do this year for you to move off of that take? Like if he comes out here and what's the threshold as far as yardage? If he only puts up 500 receiving yards, are you super concerned? Or if he only comes out and puts up 300, like what's that threshold for you that you would say, oh man, I don't know if I want to spend then I draft him as the tight end one, again, a tight end who's only 20 years old currently.
Right.
What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, like if you're looking towards something where he's getting anywhere from like 400 to 500-ish yards on the season, like, yeah, I'd start to have concerns, but the only way I could possibly see that being the case is if he gets hurt. Now, if he gets hurt, obviously like all this stuff goes out the window, but a fully healthy Kyle Pitts, or even like a mostly healthy Kyle Pitts, like if he missed a week or two because he's banged up a little bit, okay, if this dude's playing 15, 14 games in the season, he's pretty close to 1,000 yards or maybe going still over 1,000 yards while missing potentially 2 or 3 games. That's the kind of attention I think he's getting. It's in an offense. It's tight end centric with Arthur Smith. That's going to continue moving forward for as long as he's the head coach there. Julio Jones's targets are out. Calvin Ridley's still there, but Calvin Ridley already had a ton of targets last year. So it's not like you're minusing any targets anywhere. You're simply giving them all to Kyle Pitts. And so he's going to be, I think, even with Calvin Ridley, the primary option in that Atlanta Falcons offense. And I think that this guy's an easy 1,000-yard receiver. He's going to take the league by storm. He's going to probably win, well, I don't want to go too far, but like he's probably going to be right up there for offensive rookie of the year, whatever it is, depending on how the quarterbacks do. And you're not going to have any reservations about this guy. If he's close to 500 yards receiving, yeah, I'd be a little bit worried, but there's going to have to be a lot more context if that's what he ends up finishing with.
Yeah, and like you say 500 yards, and it'd be like, that's actually still pretty good for a rookie tight end. Of course, but like we're talking again in the tight end one conversation, and I say like, yeah, I agree with you. 500 receiving yards, like to push him to the tight end one, I'd be a little bit concerned to edge out Travis Kelce, even with the age gap.
I'm telling you, man.
But I can't find a path. I can't legitimately find a path for him not to finish with less than 700 receiving yards, just because of the opportunity in the offense. So I totally agree with you, man. I think that we're.
I was just about to say he had 12 touchdowns in 8 games last year in college football.
Yeah.
That's just stupid for a tight end. They're going to force
and again, only 20 years old, which is the crazy part. So, all right, here, my first Dynasty bold take, I am going to go with a 2-for-1 deal here. I'm going to go at the quarterback position, and I'm going to say that both Trey Lance and Justin Fields will both be valued as top 5 Dynasty quarterbacks next year. Ooh. Now, this is looking at edging out guys like Dak Prescott potentially, Lamar Jackson, maybe he pushes out a Kyler Murray, someone like that. Those are the guys, right now it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott, and Lamar Jackson at 1 through 5, according to our Dynasty ECR rankings over at FantasyPros.com. So edging out 2 of those guys, right? And I think that maybe you can make the case for Lamar Jackson. Dak, I think, is going to be barreling towards a fantastic year, but age is starting, he's 28 years old now, which seems crazy, that he entered in the 2016 NFL draft. So, but it's the youth part of this. With Trey Lance and Justin Fields and both of their mobility, I think that we're going to see enough here from Trey Lance and Justin Fields as far as playtime in year 1 that they are going to be able to just skyrocket up Dynasty quarterback rankings. Right now, they're at 11 with Trey Lance and 13 with Justin Fields. So they're already like knocking on that door. As far as QB1 territory, I'm saying that they're going to rise up even further with their youth and their talent, the mobility to their game, that they're going to rise into the top 5 conversation.
I think the biggest thing that would hold them back from this becoming true is when they start, right? Because like if they don't start, say, if Justin Fields doesn't start right away, if Trey Lance doesn't start right away, whenever they end up starting, I think that they're going to play really well. But if they're able to play well enough, if they're able to have enough games to where they can still struggle as rookies and yet really finish the season well, I think you're totally right. Because you and I did a Dynasty draft earlier this year, and like I'm not super confident in Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. Like obviously Lamar, when he's on, he's unstoppable, but we got to kind of see it again from him. And Kyler Murray, I mean,
what happens if Cliff is out? What happens if Cliff is out after this year?
Kyler hasn't shown us anything to say like, oh yeah, this ground is stable. We could build off of this. And so, you look at 2 of those guys who a lot of people would say like, oh yeah, absolutely top 5 Dynasty quarterbacks. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And so
Sure.
yeah, I think that there is not only room for Trey Lance and Justin Fields to prove themselves that they could get there, but I also think that guys who are currently in the top 5 aren't necessarily solidified and rooted really deep there. So I think that this could happen.
Yep. All right. Let's go on to your number 2 or number 3, depending on which order we're going down the list.
All right. I don't know how spicy this one is in the order of the ones that I have left, but I think that CeeDee Lamb is going to be wide receiver 1 for Dynasty Leagues. Wide receiver 1, as in you are not picking a single wide receiver above CeeDee Lamb in Restart Dynasty Leagues. If you have the opportunity to get him, I think you're going to, because we're watching these camp highlights, and every single day with Amari Cooper out, we are seeing the kind of player that CeeDee Lamb is. And what did he have last year? What was his receiving yards last year? Wasn't it like
give me a second.
It was 935. I have it up right here. He had 935 receiving yards while only starting in 14 games. And he didn't even have Dak Prescott as his quarterback for most of the back end of it, where he was actually coming into his own. This guy is an easy wide receiver 1 kind of a talent. And the reason why I think that he could ascend up to that top wide receiver spot for Dynasty Leagues is, of course, he's talented. Of course, he's going to be young. Of course, he's got a great quarterback with him. We just signed a big deal, and he's not going anywhere. The offensive line in Dallas is aging, but still really good. Michael Gallup's probably out of there. You know, Michael Gallup's on the last year of his contract. Amari Cooper's contract after this season gets completely flexible. A lot of the guaranteed money is completely out. So the reason why you take CeeDee Lamb as wide receiver 1 isn't just because CeeDee Lamb is talented, but it's also because there's a clear path for him to only get more work moving forward as potentially a high-end wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1, which we're seeing he's got the talent. We're seeing the highlights right now that say he could take over this offense if need be. And I think that that's why he's going to end up being the top wide receiver to take in Dynasty Leagues next year.
I think we are about to be, I think we're on the edge, on the verge of calling CeeDee Lamb a superstar in the NFL. I really do. Yep. And I had CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver 4, I think, coming out in the 2020 class. It didn't mean that I didn't like him. I mean, this guy, his tape is pretty exciting. And the part that I'm really interested about is CeeDee Lamb last year, 93.2% of his snaps were from the slot. Now, they've talked about Michael Gallup, moving into the slot and being more versatile. So I'm just intrigued. Like, what is CeeDee Lamb? How does CeeDee Lamb perform on the outside? I don't know if you had those kind of question marks with his release and his ability to play on the outside coming in. That was one of my main hiccups. But again, we're talking about a guy who showed that he can succeed in the NFL no matter what last year. Like, he's got the talent. So yeah, I think that I'm glad that you mentioned not only are we just about to call, CeeDee Lamb on the potential superstar train, but then also that Michael Gallup is potentially not going to be here next year because of salary cap reasons, because he's going to price his way out of town, whatever that may be. So that opens up an even more, significant opportunity here for CeeDee Lamb. I really like that call. All right, let me go to, what do I want to do? Let's go with the quarterback position again, and let's go with another quarterback here, a younger quarterback that I think everyone has moved off of too quickly. In Dynasty Leagues, Tua Tagovailoa will be drafted as a top 10 quarterback next year in startup leagues. I think that, we've got now Trey Lance and Justin Fields. If I'm predicting them to be in the top 5, I think Tua Tagovailoa is going to be right on their heels. We cannot forget what Tua was at Alabama. And remember, Tank for Tua was a whole thing. Like, this guy is an incredibly talented quarterback. Mm-hmm. And from what we saw last year with Chan Gailey as his offensive coordinator, he really limited him. The receivers that he had at his disposal were not exceptional last year with injuries and everything like that. Now you've got Jalen Waddle in town, Will Fuller if he can stay healthy, Devontae Parker to be able to be that contested catch guy in this offense. And all reports are that Tua Tagovailoa is lighting it up in training camp. I cannot wait to see this guy back on the field because I think that we have moved off of him too quickly from a dynasty perspective. So Tua Tagovailoa here, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he's going to be drafted as a top 10 quarterback next year.
Yeah, we as football fans have a really bad habit right now, and I feel like this has happened more recently and only been accelerated over the last 4 or 5 years, that we just get super impatient with players. And I've spoken to a lot of former players who would tell you that even some really good ones that would tell you, hey, when I was a rookie, I sucked. Like my first year in the league, I was bad. And these are guys that turned out to be really, really good football players. It takes time. Tua was also coming off an incredibly gruesome leg injury, right? And so we got to pump the brakes here, folks. Give the guy his time. Don't give up on Tua Tagovailoa yet. It's definitely not time for that. I could certainly see a big bounce back year from him.
Yep. All right, let's go with your third Dynasty Bowl take.
I think, and I've been on the J.K. Dobbins train before here on this podcast, and I've read a couple of comments on the YouTube page where people are like, I'm too high on J.K. Dobbins. I don't care. I'm going back to the well. I think that we talk about J.K. Dobbins next year the way that we are talking about Jonathan Taylor this year when it comes to Dynasty, because Jonathan Taylor, he's one of the top backs to have, right? We mentioned him up with Christian McCaffrey, with Dalvin Cook, with all those guys who were at the very top. And I think that we're going to be talking about J.K. Dobbins in that same light. Everybody keeps telling me like they have Gus Edwards. They re-signed Gus Edwards. Lamar Jackson's obviously going to take carries away from him. I get it. And I see those points and I think that they're true. But with Lamar as the quarterback, they're going to be so run-centric. They're always going to be run-centric. J.K. Dobbins is such a smart running back. They're going to only lean on this guy more and more because I'm telling you the best is yet to come from him. Gus Edwards, yes, he's there. Yes, they like him. Yes, he's going to get playing time. But I'll tell you, if they loved him, they would have signed him to more than just a 2-year, $9 million deal. I think that they all know that J.K. Dobbins is the future. And as long as J.K. Dobbins is healthy, he is only going to get more and more of a workload, not just this year, but moving forward. And that includes next year when Gus Edwards is on the last year of his deal or when Gus Edwards' deal is up. J.K. Dobbins, I think, is still going to be there. He's going to be the cornerstone. And I think the Ravens know that if they really want to maximize what Lamar Jackson is able to do for them at the quarterback position, mainly as a runner, making a great rushing attack, it's also going to come through J.K. Dobbins. And you're going to give him, he's going to get so much volume, so much attention. And I think they're always committed to their offensive line being really, really good. And Dobbins is going to be the guy who produces for them.
All right, so J.K. Dobbins, here's my question as far as how we view him in that same light as Jonathan Taylor as we do right now, because I don't think it's ever a conversation or question about talent, because J.K. Dobbins is an incredibly talented running back. And the further that we get away from it, the 2020 running back class was just, the 2020 NFL draft running back class was just ridiculous.
It was awesome.
So, I think with Jonathan Taylor, the question, though, becomes, can J.K. Dobbins become more involved in the receiving game? Because that is the question, if he as to how he's going to be able to push his way up into that top 5 echelon. Because Jonathan Taylor, 40 targets last year. Do you think J.K. Dobbins can come close to that this year?
I don't know what the passing is going to be because I'm not exactly sure what they're looking for with Lamar Jackson. I feel like they are going to shape their passing game a little bit more, or a little bit differently, I'll just say, especially with guys that they drafted like Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace. It shows me that they want to be a little bit different. It's not just this vertical speed. Right. We're going to have him drop back and he's going to throw it deep because Lamar can. But I think it might be, the passing game might become a little bit more calculated. At least that's what I believe. And I think J.K. Dobbins is plenty capable of being a receiver, right? I mean, when you look at Jonathan Taylor, I've got his college stats up right here. He had 8 receptions his first year, 8 his second year, 26 in his 2019 season. But J.K. Dobbins, I mean, throughout his career as a Buckeye, 22, 26, 23. And so he's still fully capable of being somebody who can be an asset in the passing game. It's just a matter of, will the Ravens unlock that? And I feel like they are going that direction. So yes, I think to answer that question, that's also part of a projection, but I think that that's still in J.K. Dobbins' wheelhouse. I really do.
Yep. All right, so my number 3 Dynasty Bowl take here is that Antonio Gibson will rise, not from the 50 to 12, but let's keep it going here to a top 5 Dynasty running back in
you
ECR,
hope so.
Which stands
you hope
for...
so, because you drafted him. You drafted him in our league.
I did. So
I
forgot about that until you just said that, but I did actually draft Antonio Gibson, and I think that it is on its way, because we talked about, when we were talking about Antonio Gibson going from 50 to 12 last year, we talked about, this is a guy that was still learning the running back position. This was an incredibly raw talent. Now, everything indicated, all his tape indicated that he could be really good. But I did not, I don't know about you, I did not expect 4.7 yards per carry and 11 rushing touchdowns last year on 170 rush attempts from Antonio Gibson. Like, from what we saw last year, there's no limit to his talent or his production. Like, I think that the sky is the limit for this kid as far as what he can do from a fantasy perspective. And even what we saw last night, right? We're recording this on Friday. We had the Thursday night preseason games. We saw that he was targeted. We saw that he was targeted a couple times by Ryan Fitzpatrick, getting the ball out underneath to him. So I think that we are going to see an increased role here for Antonio Gibson this year. And if that is the case, then he's got the talent to just blow the roof off. So Antonio Gibson here to a top 5 Dynasty running back.
Yeah, size, speed, strength. He's got it all, right? He's the total package. You could absolutely see a reality in which Antonio Gibson is used in that kind of Alvin Kamara role, right? Where they're getting this guy the ball in any way that they can. And Gibson's got the receiver background. He's played slot receiver before.
Yep.
He plays plenty out of the backfield. They can entrust him with the ball in his hands when he's moving forward as a running back. They could also entrust him with his hands out of the backfield, however they want to run some routes. And so, yeah, it's always fun when you get players that are that versatile. And so it's going to be fun to watch Gibson and his rise to the top.
You know, you mentioned Alvin Kamara there, and like that role that he can fill. It's Alvin Kamara, but with red zone rush attempts. You know, like
sure.
He had 19 rush attempts in the red zone last year. So
Yeah.
like we could even see that number uptick as his overall volume on the ground upticks this year, which is just crazy to think about. So Antonio Gibson, top 5 dynasty running back next year. All right, let's go to your final one here, Trevor.
Okay.
Where are we going with our dynasty bold take?
Okay, I think that Michael Carter is going to be. I have written down here top 15. I'm tempted to say I'm tempted to say top 12. So he might be one of those two, 15 or 12, which I know dilutes the part of the bold take. But you know, when you look at the Jets, they're not a complete picture right now. They are still rebuilding, but I love the direction they're going, especially on the offensive line. I think that Joe Douglas realizes that that offensive line a couple of years ago was absolute crap, and he has done a good job of investing premium picks and money into that offensive line. They've got Elijah Vera Tucker. They have Mekhi Becton. I think a year from now, 2 years from now, that offensive line is going to be one of the best in the AFC for the guys that they're going to add, because I've seen how aggressive that they've been for that. Now, the running back room, you can look at it now and you can say, it's crowded, Trev. They got Tevin Coleman. They've got LaMichael Pirine. They've got Ty Johnson. They've got Josh Adams. They've got everybody else on top of Michael Carter. I'm telling you, he's going to take the lead. He is going to take the lead. And look, the first part of this year, the first half of this year is going to be about Michael Carter coming out on top of that committee. But I think the second half of the year, especially the last maybe fourth of the season, regular season, it's really going to turn into the Michael Carter show. And I think the Jets are going to realize how special they have with a back like this. His vision is phenomenal. His play balance is great. He's got the speed, I think, to be successful in the NFL. He's versatile enough in the passing game where you can use him with dump off passes and he get points that way. I think that he is an all-around talent, but it's his vision that is going to make him the top running back in this group. Next year, I think that they're going to improve the offensive line even more. They're going to build around Zach Wilson even more, and it's going to be fully Michael Carter's show, and I think that's the reason why he's going to be drafted that highly.
Here's the argument, and building upon your argument, right? Because I agree with all your points, but I think, excuse me, part of it too can be that with Zach Wilson adjusting to the speed of the NFL, and from all that we're hearing is that he is going to be a little bit of a developmental quarterback, which is what I projected. But the sky is through the roof, or the sky's through the roof. Sky's the limit for Zach Wilson and what he can be. I think with something as he adjusts to the speed of the NFL game is that we could see him lean on the running backs out of the backfield as check down options, right? And without the significant tight end presence on this roster either, right? That's what we typically see with young quarterbacks that aren't completely up to speed. They lean on their tight ends. Well, we don't have that here in New York. So we could see him lean on the running backs out of the backfield as receivers a little bit more than what we're used to, and that is what Michael Carter also brings to the table, is he's an incredible receiver. So we could see that factor in here as well, to be able to build that path to a top 15 dynasty running back, because he's going to see a ton of targets out of the backfield too, which is not what we think about Mike LaFleur coming over from San Francisco. That's not what we expect and project, because that just is not how Kyle Shanahan has used his running backs heavily as receivers out of the backfield. I think we could see that here in New York with Michael Carter. So I agree with that call. My final one here, I've got two options. I'm going to go with, let's go with the inverse of Antonio Gibson having that rise. I'm going to go with a faller here. I'm going to go with Michael Thomas will fall outside of the top 24 wide receivers in Dynasty ECR, which is crazy to go from wide receiver 1 going into last year to now outside of the top 24. The injury certainly does not help this. Mm-hmm. But even with Drew Brees gone, I had questions about Michael Thomas, and I had him, I think, just inside my top 12 wide receivers for redraft rankings for this year. So I think we are going to see if it's Jameis Winston, if it's Taysom Hill. He's coming back in. We don't know his health status. We don't even know. Honestly, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes. We don't even know if he's going to be in New Orleans. We don't know what that situation looks like either. So there's a ton of uncertainty here with Michael Thomas, where we might not even see him at all this year. That's a possibility with all the bad blood that's going on between the team and him. So Michael Thomas here will fall outside of the top 24 wide receivers in Dynasty ECR. Do I want to see it happen? Absolutely not, because I think Michael Thomas is an incredibly talented wide receiver. He's been so consistent, but we see these drop-offs. We had Juju Smith-Schuster as a top 5 Dynasty wide receiver a couple years ago after Antonio Brown left. Where is he now? He's well outside the top 24. So we could see that here with Michael Thomas.
Uncertainty is the enemy, right? And it's abundant with Michael Thomas, whether it's his health, whether it's his usage, or whether or not he's even going to be in New Orleans. I mean, his contract gets pretty easy to trade. It really does. So obviously he can't be traded now because he's injured, but you start thinking about that. If they're disgruntled behind the scenes, we've heard stories and we know examples of Sean Payton is kind of like, he'll do what he needs to do to get the right team on the field. Right. And if that doesn't include Michael Thomas, I think that you could see him shipped off. And so, yeah, I mean, if he is still a member of the Saints by the time you're doing your dynasty drafts, and it's still a rocky future for him, there's no doubt about it. You're going to see on the draft board a lot of people pass on him just because they have no idea what's going to happen with him.
For sure. And also 28 years old already, and that if we fast forward a year, then we might see him, he's another year older. We might see him tick down naturally just because of age. So yeah, all the uncertainty here, man, I'm not a fan of it. So Michael Thomas outside the top 24. All right, that was a ton of fun. Dynasty Bold Takes. Man, crazy to think about what happened last year. Again, like crazy ones like Zach Ertz falling from a top 4 tight end to 22. Like, it's just ridiculous. I can't wait to look back and see what has changed this year. And I hope that none of it happened to my dynasty rosters. I hope that we completely avoided it because I don't want to deal with the headaches of owning Zach Ertz and all these players.
Yeah, that's why you threw in the Antonio Gibson one. You want to root for your fantasy team and you want to root to be right.
I did not do that on purpose, I promise. All right, thank you so much to Reality Sports Online for sponsoring today's podcast. Head over to realitysportsonline.com to learn more about what they've got going on there. Trevor, any parting words here before we get out of here?
CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver 1. Believe it. Ooh. Speak it into existence. Ooh. It will be a fun league if this happens, folks. We all need it to happen.
Oh, man, I can't wait to see what Dallas's offense looks like this year, what some of these just exciting offenses, the Los Angeles Rams, I can't wait to see what they do this year. We are getting closer and closer to football time, man. So, all right, for Trevor Sikkema, I'm Kyle Yates, and we'll see you next time. Looking for useful content, fantasy-relevant information, and the data that can help your team win? Then make sure to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel. And while you're at it, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at FantasyPros, so we can help you dominate your league all season long.